Hi, everybody. I'm your host, Doug Piper, and I apologize. We're starting just a moment late, but sometimes it takes a little bit of work. We've got people from Germany. We also have them in Mills River, North Carolina. So taking a little coordinating today, but we're getting there, and I hope we're going to have everybody on screen. And actually, we may have to break the process a little bit to get one of our special speakers on, because we have in addition to Weihenstephan, we have a Weihenstephan, excuse me, and I will mispronounce that. Y'all can give me all the grief, and I will try and pronounce these correctly. So anyway, I'm your host, Doug Piper. I hope everybody is doing well. I am so enjoying the fall weather. I hope you are too. I want to welcome you to Gourmet Brewing, and I want you to know how happy I am you're spending a few minutes with us today. We've got a really great event lined up today. This is an interesting topic for me, and I'm hoping you too. I'm a huge fan of Hefeweizen beers, and it's a rare treat to hear from the head brewer of Weihenstephaner. And we're actually going to bring him on screen at the moment, and there we go. All right. So the first one I want to introduce here is Tobias Zollo. So Tobias, how are you doing today?
I'm fine. Hi.
And in addition, in case you haven't guessed from the shirt there, that is Scott Jennings from Sierra Nevada. He's the head brewer there in Mills River, North Carolina. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you, Doug. Can you hear me okay?
I can, and that's a big relief.
Hallelujah. I was the problem for all the listeners out there. It was all my fault.
Oh, no. We're all working together on this. So anyway, welcome, Scott. So we're going to have a good time. Scott and Tobias go back a ways. So that's where this is going to get really interesting and fun. But I want you to know we're going to be talking about Weihenstephaner Vitus, which is a Weizenbock and BJCP 10C style example of a pale Weizenbock. Now, first of all, I want you to introduce today's printer. So not only can I not get the show to run well, I can't speak well. We'll try again. Allow me a moment to introduce you to today's presenter. Tobias Zollo can be described as a brewer with heart and passion. He began his brewing career as an apprentice brewer and maltster in Bavaria for 6 years. After that, he was intrigued and wanted to dig deeper, so began studies at the prestigious Brewing and Beverage Technology at the Doemens Academy and IHK in Munich, before becoming the brewmaster at Fetchlazon in Switzerland. And I probably did a horrible name with that. How would I pronounce it proper?
It's also not so easy to pronounce for Germans, so this is a typical Swiss. It's a Feldschlösschen, but it's the biggest brewery in Switzerland, so yeah.
Well, we know they benefited from your presence, and then as I understand it, in 2015, you were called home to become the head brewmaster of the world's oldest brewery, the Bavarian State Brewery, Weihenstephan. So, for those of you that are new to what we're doing here, this is Gourmet Brewing, and we do free events each month where we talk to subject matter experts on beer and fine beverages. This will actually be our 54th free event. And I have to give a big shout out and thank you to all the supporters, because these events are all crowdfunded by supporters. And because of them, they're free to you. We don't sell anything, and this is not a typical sales webinar. We're not going to do some closing with fantastic sales opportunities at the end of the program. These are all free trainings. We do them a couple of times monthly. But we do have support from a very special group that supports Gourmet Brewing. The entire channel is supported through our community at Patreon. They're the reason we're able to offer this content to you for free. So if you're interested in supporting Gourmet Brewing's programming and becoming part of the solution, I encourage you to drop by our Patreon page, patreon.com/Doug Piper. and I will drop that link in the chat there, or you actually, if you click on the green button there at the bottom, that will also take you there, and you can explore that further. Most people just buy me a beer. Now, it looks like we've got everybody in the room, and I am ready to transition our presentation to Weihenstephan Vitus. Now, again, Vitus is a Weizenbock, a BJCP 10C style example for pale Weizenbock. And we're going to be hearing from Weihenstephan's head brewer, Tobias Zollo. And we're going to go about to the top of the next hour, and then after that, we're going to take your questions, which will be answered whether you attend live or not. So if you need to run, you want to pop in a question, you'll actually get a unique link that'll tell you how to, that'll take you directly to the recording. You don't even have to watch the whole program. I would ask you, though, to please click on the follow button that's in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. It's green. This helps attract speakers and then alerts you when the live streams go now. So there's no email, no spam. This just helps us both. Also, if the webinar is not playing correctly, and it's not my fault, maybe your browser window will resolve most issues. So just refreshing that. Also reducing the resolution of the program by clicking on the gear in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. We also have the Ask a Question button, and I see 2 people have already found that. Tobias will answer your questions, and also Scott there at the end of our program. So I look forward to hearing more about where people are from. I see people from Cologne. I saw somebody earlier from Brazil, Lithuania, Bristol, Tennessee. We've got folks from all over, and so I'm glad that you're here. So now that we're through all that, Tobias, welcome. And could you share with your audience, you know I was struggling with the pronunciations, and I thought you had a great way to coach me through pronouncing your name correctly.
Yeah. Hi again. So for sure you can say Tobias. So this is the common pronunciation in the USA, for example, in English. So, but in Germany you say Tobias, and I told Doc, you just have to think about it's just like 2 beers, so 2 beers, and then you can remember. So that's why he said, okay, now I got it.
Yeah, and I need that kind of coaching, so I really appreciate that. So I like that, Tobias. That's a perfect name for a head brewer. Tobias, would you briefly cover what, just for the folks that are maybe have just jumped in on the call, could you give us just 30 to 60 seconds of what you're going to cover today?
Yeah, what we want to do is, so thank you for the opportunity we have and for the chance to present our brewery and everything. So I think we'll talk about a little bit about the history. So as you know, it's the world's oldest brewery. So there's something to say about, tell about the history of Weihenstephan and the brewery, and then we come particular to this special beer. So our, I think, famous beer in the world is our Weihenstephan Vitus, our pale Weizenbock, and we can have a pour together. I hope everybody has the beer at home, hopefully. If not, so you can enjoy other great Weihenstephan or Sierra Nevada beer. And then we can, put a beer together and talk about the beer and enjoy it together. So that's what we plan for the first round.
Right. That's going to be a lot of fun. I've already had one of mine, and this is one delicious beer, and I guess mine was extra fresh because it was just phenomenal. So before we jump in then to the whole to the beer, and I've got mine sitting right here, and I know you've got yours. Could you tell me a little bit about what's going on at the world's oldest brewery? A little bit maybe of the history, some significant things about the brewery, and maybe even some upcoming beers.
Yeah, the legend says so. This was actually Saint Cobain, so a monk. He came over earliest of 700 something, he came over the Alps to Bavaria to found a good place to settle up a monastery to bring out the religion to the people. And then he was on a small hill and he found a water, so a spring. And that's something special to find water on a spring on a mountain. So that's why he said, okay, this is the place. I will set up the monastery here. And he built it up. So it was 725 when they built the monastery. And we have a lot of some history. They found also hop growing on the hill at that time. So monastery and hops. So that's why we think they always brewed beer there. But the first time they mentioned they get the right of the city to brew and sell beer, it was 1040. So that's why this is our official date of the founding date of the brewery. And from 1040 on, now several years and centuries, they brewed beer here continually. Of course, there was sometimes the monastery burned down and was rebuilt, and there was secularization and no monastery anymore. And it came to the king, so it was a king brewery, in a royal brewery in Bavaria of the state. And after the king was also gone in Bavaria. So it's still belongs to the state of Bavaria. So Bavaria is a part of Germany, but so the brewery belongs to the state. So we are proud to say we are independent. So still working in this brewery since almost 1,000 years. So we have 20 years left for the big celebration to the big fest, and we are, hopefully can celebrate that.
1,000 years. Now that's a celebration. Have you already started discussing what you might do?
We did, of course. So we discussed what beer and what we shall do there. But okay, it's 20 years ahead, but we still receive a lot of questions. Can I get a table there on the fest on your tent? So I want to be there for the 1,000 years celebration. So that's really cool, and we are so happy. So that shows we have a lot of fans out of there, and that's really cool. So
you're taking reservations 20 years ahead?
No, we don't take reservations. We don't take, of course not. But it's good to know so that people loves to come and thinks about 20 years before. So that's really cool. Think about what we do, maybe some special thing which takes longer years. So that's why we think about now if we can do a special beer, but nothing detailed. Just thinking. We have time.
Save me a place, Tobias. I'll be there for sure.
Okay, I take one reservation. It's you, Scott. So I'm also, by the way, sorry, I'm also happy that you joined the stream tonight. So that's really cool to have a beer with you.
Yeah, nice to see you.
Really cool.
It's been a long time. It's great to hear your voice.
Yeah.
Scott, can you kind of explain how you two know each other? Because I think that's a fun story from what I've heard.
Yeah, sure. A few years ago, I guess 3 now, we did a collaboration together for Oktoberfest beer that we brewed here in Mills River and also in Chico, California, our home base. That was the first time we met. I had the wonderful opportunity to go visit the brewery. I had been to Weihenstephan before, but never inside the brewery. Only to the Braustube, which is amazing, by the way. We got to see the inside of the brewery. For me, that was oh my gosh, almost like as a brewer, it's almost like a pilgrimage, to go to the world's oldest brewery was so magical for me. And then we had a wonderful day touring through the brewery, trying some Keller beer, talking about our project, which turned into 2 projects. But then to cap it all off, at the end of the day, we just happened to bump into Professor Dr. Narcisse, who was stopping by to pick up some beer, and he's one of the ultimate heroes in the world of brewing science, and so I'll never forget that day, Tobias. That was pretty great.
Yeah, that's right. I agree. That was also the day when we was in the cellar, and we also tried the Vitus from the tank. So this is something we normally don't do with nobody, because this is too special and it's too holy for us, the Vitus. But we did it, and
well, Scott, you're what really prompted this, because I exchanged some email with Tobias, and I was explaining what you and I do were trying to capture Celebration Ale. And when I discussed it with Tobias, he said, "Oh, well, our Vitus, that's a special beer like Celebration." And so we got to talking about that, and that seemed to be easily the best thing for us to talk about today.
I could not agree more. And I feel very lucky. A big thank you, Tobias, for sending me this beautiful package. I can't wait to open it.
welcome.
Well, Tobias, before we jump into the Vitus, although I think I'm ready to jump in and open it too, did you want to touch on anything else from the brewery besides the 1,000-year event coming up in 20 years? Maybe there's some other special beers coming up for 2021?
Yeah, the last 20 years was we growed very, very fast. So especially in the export market. So biggest market are the United States. So we grew there very, very fast, and that's why we also could invest a little bit in the brewery and got new equipment and everything. And the last years our main products are the top fermenting beers. So Hefeweiss is our top product or power brand, and then it's the Vitus. But in the last years, we also developed non-alcoholic beers, also bottom fermenting beers, so different kinds of bottom fermenting beers. So, for example, for the 500 years of the purity law celebration in 2016, we invented a Keller beer, so a cloudy bottom fermented beer. So more or less from the beginning of the brewery, so very dark in color, more hops to celebrate that. So we focused more on the bottom fermentings, and also our fest beers we get there every year, and every year is more popular in the United States. But this year we launched mild lager beer, a Helles, a very classical, typical style. The special thing is, so we get a very special hop variety from the Hallertau, which makes it more smooth and balanced and very soft and mouth feeling and very, very drinkable. So really, really drinkable. So that's why all people say, okay, we need it everywhere. And I think we launch it next year in the beginning of the year in the United States. So this is, I think is it still a secret? My colleague says, I think it's a secret. So you know it now, so maybe you can get it.
We won't tell anybody
at the beginning of the next year, so we can bring a new beer for the United States. A very classical Bavarian style of mild lager, mild Helles. So,
wow,
Gold was very balanced and highly drinkable.
So the Vitus, when we started talking about how significant that was. And I was explaining a little bit about the Celebration Ale that Scott had been sharing with me. And you were saying that your brewery, when you brew Vitus, it gets a lot of special attention. Can you describe that without giving away secrets? Although a little secret would be okay.
I only can give a little bit of the secrets. Otherwise, I cannot go out of this. Don't let me out of this room anymore. So, it is a special thing. So it starts by selecting the raw materials. So we have two special hop varieties, which we have as a separate batch. So we have hop growers. So we of course we are not that small brewery. So of course we buy hops from the Hallertau, also from the big hop producers. But we have two hop growers. With them we have a very long-term contract or relationship. So for decades. So I visit them in springtime to see how they starting the hops. So I go there in the summertime to see how is the hop on the field, and of course I'm there for the harvest. So and we can pick our hops. So I can select them. I know the brewer, the hop growers, and I know the hop. I see in which place it's better. Is it this row better or the other rows? Or this is really, we can select it. And these batches we select from our two hop growers, these are special treated. So we'll let them very long on the field to have more alpha acids and more flavors inside. And then we treat it very gentle to keep as much flavor as possible in the hop. And this is the hop we conserve, especially. And we select these hops for the Vitus. So this is what we use for the Vitus, especially. And a little bit now for the new Helles. But the main reason was for the Vitus. And that's why we very focus on the hops, and we say for this special holy beer we want to have the best raw materials. So this is from the hop side, and also we more or less doing it with the malt. So we visit our farmers, and we just have Bavarian malt. So we go to the fields, see the barley and see the wheat, and select our raw materials, and have special batches, very lighter malt, lighter in color for the Vitus, because we want to have a very light color, pale Weizenbock. So maybe you know a lot of Weizenbock which are dark. So we want to have it as light or as possible. It's just the cloudiness of the natural cloudiness of the yeast inside, but we want to have a very light color. So maybe maximum a little bit apricot, which fits to the beer style. So that's what we're doing with the raw materials. Also the yeast, when we come to the yeast. So we have a special yeast strain. We are almost 1,000 years old. So we have very, very old and just Weihenstephan style yeast strains, which we, of course, always propagate in our brewery, in our own yeast propagation. And some cells of the yeast we have stored next door in the University of Weihenstephan in the yeast bank. So you can buy the yeast there, of course, but you can't buy our yeast. So this is just ours. It's called Stephanus because of Weihenstephan. And this is the top fermenting yeast we use for our wheat beer, and especially for the Vitus, because we want to have the special flavors. I think one thing in the Vitus is, of course, when we. You can interrupt me, Doug. So I will. I just tell.
I was mesmerized. You were doing so good.
When we can go to the how we produce it. So.
Yes, I wish you would.
Okay. So after selecting our raw materials, of course, we have a special mash program. So we have in our brew house, we have not only one mash tun, so we have a mash tun and a mash cupper, and we doing some part mashing, and we do it 3 times. So 3 mash, 3 times. So very old traditional style of mashing. And I know a lot of people say you don't need to do that with the malts in 2020, so they're good enough. And I say it's okay. You don't need it. That's right. But you're not producing Vitus, so I want to have the best beer, and I want to have this special taste. So we want to have this special taste. So that's why we give the beer time, and we give the brewing time, and we select our raw materials, and we give it the time it needs to have it. So yeah.
Yeah.
So you can produce beer otherwise, no problem. It's also good. Yes, but it's not a Vitus. So we have this 3-time mashing, special temperatures. So it's a very one of our oldest recipes for the Hefeweiss, of course, and we adjusted it. And when we launched the Vitus, Vitus is now, I think, 10 or 15 years on the market. First, it was just meant for seasonal, but the demand was so high, the people love it. So it's now our second strongest brand. So this is crazy. It's crazy because it's 7.7 ABV, so it's not so easy to drink. It is easy to drink. That's the thing, but it's you cannot drink 5 or 6 normally, just on good days. We have
so is that a decoction mash? Is that?
It's a decoction mash. Yeah, of course.
It is
3-time decoction. Yeah.
Wow.
That's true. It's a good point, Tobias. What you say. Of course, that's not necessary to get the starch conversion that you need really for fermentation. It's not necessary to do it from a technical point of view, but it's really necessary to do it for a flavor point of view in a beer like this.
Yes. Yeah. That's what I wanted to say. Yeah. So 3 times decoction.
So can you talk to that just a moment? Because I've always heard decoction for caramel flavors and doppelbocks, and I did not realize that Vitus was, decoction mashed. So what flavors? I mean, I don't remember a caramel flavor in there. What does the decoction mash pull out?
First of all, we get a better foam. So this is one point. So we have a very, very good foam when we do that. The other thing is we have the special temperatures to push the esters. So when we have more esters, we have more banana flavor inside. And this is what is typical thing for the Vitus. It's a banana bomb, more or less. That's what we wanted to have. So we want to have a very easy, drinkable, full-flavored beer. A lot of people say you don't get the alcohol inside. It's nothing. So you just drink it very easily, very gentle as a normal Hefeweiss. I said, okay, do it, drink it, 2 or 3, then think about if it's a normal beer or not. And most of the people come back after 3. Wow, what's up with the beer? What did you put inside? I said, yeah. That's what we wanted to do. So I think this is one point of this part of the success. It's so easy to drink. And this is also what we do with this. When we say we give them time, it's also when we have a fermentation, we have a very gentle fermentation. So we have it in the horizontal tanks. So it's just 2 meters high. So it's no pressure on the yeast. So no pressure on nothing, because yeast is a living culture. It's I always say it's if you have too much pressure on the yeast, it doesn't like it. So, and it works different. It's like for us, for humans. So when you give you too much pressure, you don't like it. You work different. So that's why I say, okay, let the yeast, give the yeast time. The yeast should feel good in the tank, and sometimes this is true. I don't know if it's good to say it, but sometimes I go to the fermentation tank and I touch it and say, hey, it's okay. Let's go. I want to want to change with you, you can jump into the Vitus. So nice. And my colleague always say he's crazy. He talks with the beer in the tank, and not the beer. This is our.
Don't worry, Tobias. I do it too. Sometimes I even sing to them.
But I do it in the morning before I have beer. So really crazy.
We'll have to get that on film, Scott.
All right, maybe.
No, that's why I say give the yeast time and then let it gently ferment the Vitus and open fermenting. So we have a closed tank, but we have no pressure. That's why I say open fermenting and just 2 meters, so that's not really pressure. And after that, so I give it 5 or 6 days, and when the extract is down at 5 or something about, so have enough for carbonization, then I transfer it to vertical tank, and then we let's settle it down smooth for carbonization, to have the small bubbles inside. So it's always better to have the carbonization out of the beer, and it makes then it has a much more better mouth feel and a better foam. And I will let it in this tank for 3, 4, 5 weeks. After 4 weeks, I'll try the first time. And after 5 weeks, it's almost ready. And I think one of the key of a good beer is the balance. So you can, of course, as we said, you can do a lot of beers faster or easier, or I don't know. But I think one very important thing is the balance. So it should be balanced. It should be not too bitter, not too harsh, not too light, not too, doesn't matter, nothing. It should be balanced. It should be, I think you should see something, what has the brewer thought about it, yeah? What was his plan? So is it well balanced? Is it a round thing? Is it okay? So doesn't matter which beer style. I want to see, is it a round thing? And that's what I always want to focus. So that's why we have we have the maturation in the tanks. So when I say it's okay, it's okay for me, then I fill it in the bottles, not earlier. So I want to be sure that the beer is okay. And then we ship it into the world.
Wow. So are these bottle conditioned?
No, we don't do that. So there are bottle condition is also not bad, but I prefer to know what's the taste of the beer when it goes in out of the tank. So then I can be 100% sure it's the beer I meant to brew. That's why I personally want to do it. I don't want to say bottle condition is not good, so don't misunderstand me there, but it's also a lot of good beers for that. But I personally want to check the quality and taste it before it's in a bottle. And
Tobias, I can bet you, and I haven't read over the questions yet, somebody's going to ask, can I harvest your yeast from a Vitus beer? Is there enough yeast in there to harvest it?
As I said, we have our own yeast propagation. So we just use fresh propagated yeast.
No, I mean, could someone harvest it from the bottle?
Of course you can, but it's sleeping. Maybe you can wake it, but I never tried, to be honest. I think you can. Of course, there's a lot of yeast inside, so maybe too less for a brew, but you have to drink enough, so I have to work very clean, and then you can harvest it. Yeah, but I'm not sure if you can brew a good beer.
Well, speaking of drinking it,
yeah,
why don't we open it?
Yeah, all
right. So, Tobias, I am now. I've had a little trouble with my camera, but hopefully it will cooperate. So while I pour it, you and your beautiful beer be the only thing on screen. So I look forward to hearing you unpack this for everybody as we drink it. So, Scott, I want to knock you off the screen for just a moment.
Okay.
So you can open your bottle, Scott. Best thing is, of course, if you have the right glass, but you can use any other glass like that. So it's a wine glass or a tasting glass or anything. So this is when you get the best flavors for this special beer style. That's why we chose this glass. So as you can see, it's a very light amber color, a little bit amber, but pale colored. A little bit apricot. So we just use this pale malt, lager malt. A little bit yeast on the bottom, of course, huh? By the way, I see I have the big bottle and you just have the small bottles. I hope you have enough.
I do. That was exactly the bottle.
Yeah.
So, cheers.
A little bit hazy, yeah. Cheers. It's a little bit hazy, cloudy from the yeast, and that's the cool. Cheers, Scott.
Cheers.
That's the cool thing with this glass. So you get all this aromas of especially banana. A little bit. Of course, some gloves and just a little bit in apricot or lemon, but the main thing is the big thing is banana. So that's the special thing with this beer. It's like a Hefeweiss, but much more of everything, of every flavor. But no, you don't get the alcohol at the first moment, so you get it after 3 beers around. Yeah. 2 beers.
I'm going to hold off on 3 beers and sip on this one. But what a gorgeous beer. I mean, hopefully our camera will cooperate here. I mean, that is just a phenomenally beautiful beer. Bring that back in the center of the screen a little bit. Just a little bit of a haze. And what a gorgeous glass. Now, is this technically a goblet? Is that, or is there another name for it?
A name for the...
For the glass? Yeah.
A name for the glass?
Yes.
Good question. Anton? My colleague, I have to ask my wingman.
I would guess a goblet. It looks like it's halfway between a goblet and a chalice.
No, sorry, we are brewers. We are not glass. I don't know. So wine glass, like I don't know. Vitus glass. It's a Vitus glass. Mm-hmm. This is their own category, I think.
That's what it is.
I like that answer. Well, it's certainly. I have. There's none other that I've seen like it. So is it old? Do you know? Tobias? The style of the glass?
Is it was?
Scott, now you brew a Hefeweizen, do you not?
Yeah, we do. We call it Calibration. Yeah, it's I would say it's quite different from the Weihenstephaner wheat beer. Ours is more clove. It has a lot of clove character along with the banana. That's the first thing that strikes me when I taste this beer is first, like you say, Tobias, the banana, but it's a really soft feel. And also a soft flavor. So I think a little bit of clove might be there, but it's very subtle. But wow, one of the things that I love about this beer, and I wonder, Tobias, maybe if you think the mouthfeel and the body, how soft and smooth and incredibly drinkable it is, that might have something to do with the alcohol, but it might also just be, the ending gravity or the mashing profile. I don't know, but ours is got a little bit of that clove in there, which makes the finish a little more quick instead of that really creamy finish that this one has.
Thanks. Yeah.
Now, Scott, in the Deep South, we love something called banana pudding, and that's what it reminds me of. I don't know if there's anything like that in Germany, but that's a vanilla and banana pudding, and it's got the meringue on top, and you put the clove on it. I mean, this is not sweet, of course, not sweet. It's very dry, but it just reminds me of it'd be like a dry banana pudding.
Yeah, Tobias, I don't know if you know what the banana pudding, or you can imagine what it is, but it's a dessert, and it's made with a special cookie, which it has a really nice bread character. So I think that's what you're talking about, Doug. I know exactly what you're talking about. Although that's so sweet, it's delicious. I'll tell you, I love it. But but this is. Definitely has that nice, almost, I don't know how you would call it, the malt character, Tobias, in this beer. It's something like a sweet bread, cake, dessert type flavor in there. Maybe we would say graham cracker or something like that here.
So Tobias, you said the yeast is unique to Weihenstephan. But you say you can purchase it. It just may not be exactly what's in Vitus. Is that right?
That's right. Yes, this is our yeast protected for Weihenstephan. You can buy, of course, some. Typical Bavarian Weizen yeasts. So you can produce a very good wheat beer, Bavarian style. So you can do that, of course. So there are possibilities, especially here in Weihenstephan. So next door we have the university. They have a yeast bank or a yeast center, they call it, and you can purchase there. A lot of yeasts for every kind of beer, especially for the European styles. So it's a good choice there, but not our yeast.
So Scott, in your Hefeweizen, which is lower alcohol, the maturation time, fermentation time that you have for yours, I mean, it sounds like what Tobias is doing is considerably longer, at least from what I've done in a home brewing setting.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. This is a little bit of an interesting developmental history. But when we started that brand, our intention was to do that in the most traditional way, which to finish the beer would be to take the mature beer and then blend it with Speise, which is basically wort for sugar source, and then fresh yeast, and then bottle conditioning. And that added, I don't know, 3 weeks or something to our timetable on that. And the thing that, and this is coming from a brewery, by the way, who bottle conditions more beer than anybody on the planet. I mean, bottle conditioning is what we do, but we had a heck of a time getting that one right in the Kellerweiss. So we decided we're not doing that. It was too inconsistent for us. So, but I do think it made something special in the beer in the early days. But our process start to finish, and I think I saw a question in the feed about this, is really right at about little more than 2 weeks, I would say. So maybe 16 days or so from brewing to bottling, since we stopped bottle conditioning on the Calibration. So long story short, a little more than 2 weeks.
So what I hear is a very special yeast, not available anywhere else. A really fine selection on your hops. It sounds like there's a tremendous amount of care that goes into the Vitus hops. And a unique mashing process. I mean, decoction mashing, you don't have to do, but to be a Vitus, you do. And then a long, extra long fermentation cycle. I mean, it really, this is not a beer for the masses. This is a beer for people that really want to appreciate the best, it sounds like. And
Thank you. Yeah, that's what we meant to do. So we always want to do the best beers, and we take the time and we select the raw materials. And I think one of the big keys is it is the yeast and the fermentation. So it's sometimes it's underrated. So a lot of people focus on hops because it's maybe easier to get or fancier to call or easier to see or more effects on the flavor or different types of flavor. And it's yes, they are right. So you can do that. But I think fermentation and then yeast management is still underestimated or underrated in some of the breweries. It's of course it's not so easy. Scott, you know what I mean, and it's not so easy for especially small breweries which have not so many brews to give more time for that. But I think selecting different yeasts or find your own yeast or the yeast for the beer style you want to have. When you find that, then it's then you can have a more balanced and beer and a better thing at the end of the day. So that's why fermentation. That's why we get them time, no pressure, and a lot of time, and we choose. We tried a lot of things and still trying some things to improve. So that's what Scott said. We can do it with Speisen, we can do it bottle condition, and you can do it in different ways in different tanks or just one tank. So there's so many ways to produce, or at least or especially this Bavarian style Hefeweiss, but it's just one way to produce our special beer style, and that's what it still makes the difference between the different brands. And I think one big point is, of course, yeast and yeast management or fermentation management, because these beer styles are not dominated by hop flavor. So that's why are they tasting so different? Because of the fermentation and yeast. So keep that in mind.
Does Vitus age well? I know it's at 7.7. It's probably a little low for aging a beer.
Yes, of course you can age Vitus, but for pale beers generally, I just can recommend to drink them as fresh as possible. So I think aging is better for beers of, as you said, with high ABV, of course, but also with the darker colors and dark beers. Because what happens, what is the most or the first flavor which you get when you age a beer? It's plum and chocolate or this kind of flavors, which fits better to dark beers. So, and when you age it longer, 2 or 3 years, then you get it more in this sherry style. So, for dark beers, that's great. But for this banana bump, I don't want to have a sherry flavor. So it's
yeah.
Could be better. So fresher is better in this way. We have beers you can age, of course, also like as like Sierra Nevada has some beers you can age, but don't age their pale ale. So it's as fresh as possible. You can get it, drink it, don't age it. So be happy to have a fresh pale ale, but you can age Norol, or I don't know. So these are great beers to age sometimes. So,
Tobias, I had one more question, but Scott, maybe you've got one.
No, I just had a comment, Tobias. It sounds like maybe our next project should be to design an extra strong Weizenbock specifically for barrel aging, and then we can have something really unique.
that's a good idea, and you have to come over after this Corona situation as fast as possible to have enough time for the 1,000-year celebration. So we have to do something, and
yeah, I will be there, and I'm going
to age it at least 1,040 days, or I don't know.
Yeah, that's high on my list, I can tell you for sure. And I will eat, sleep, and drink for days in your beer garden. It's the most beautiful place in the world, probably.
Yeah, that's right. It was last year in June, I think. You've been over for some different project, so not for Weihenstephan or anything. But that's cool. Scott said, I'm in Germany accidentally, so I have a project in Austria. It was Austria, so not even in Germany. He said, I can stop by. I have one day. I can stop by. And I said, yeah, you're always welcome. And we've been very long at this beer garden, so it was, yeah. It was a nice day. So,
Well, you guys have cooked up some good things. So, my question was this, Tobias. When you started talking about this being a pale Weizenbock, I had the impression that was challenging. Is it especially challenging to make a pale Weizenbock, especially with the decoction mashing?
I think so, and because of the more decoction and the more heating, the darker the color, of course. We want it as light as possible, more or less. And the other thing is it's easier to cover higher alcohol with darker malts because you have a more flavor like chocolate or, as I said, plum. And so that covers the alcohol and more, and it gets a better mouthfeel, more sugar, more extract. So you have a more full-bodied beer. So the challenge for this beer is to have it very high fermented, so very less extract, very less sugar inside, and just the flavor, the banana flavor from the yeast and from the fermentation to cover this alcohol. So we want to have, as I said, we want to have it. You to drink it, to feel it very balanced, very smooth from this smooth carbonization. And we don't want you to feel the alcohol. Of course, you feel it after 2 or 3 beers, but you shouldn't feel it for the first sip or for the first beer. So that's the challenge in this beer. So it's, it's of course easier to do it in a dark beer than in a lighter beer.
It is delicious, and the alcohol is certainly well hidden. And a banana bomb is certainly a great description, but it's so balanced that banana bomb makes it sound like it's out of balance. And it is delicious. Well, it is just past the top of the hour. I know it's also getting late there in Germany. Tobias, do you have a little time to answer? It looks like we got 11 questions there. Do you have time to answer at least a few of those?
We can do that, of course, yeah.
Excellent.
I'm happy.
Scott, can you hang on? You might want to jump into some of these questions too.
I will, yeah. As long as the battery holds out, I am online.
All right. Now, for those of you that maybe don't, for those of you that maybe don't have a question, please feel free to vote one up. So in case we run out of time, everybody gets one vote. So if you scroll through the questions, you see one that's really popular, you want to hear it asked first, jump in there and vote it up. So our first question comes from Thomas. In your opinion, what are the best commercially available yeasts, liquid and dry, for German wheat-style beers?
I think we talked about that before. So I have, to be honest, I have not that much experience with the yeast from the other big yeast sellers. So once I did a collaboration in Australia, and we get the yeast from the United States, and that was okay for that beer style. It was a mix of German and Australian beer style, and it worked really good. So I just can talk for the yeast I know more or better. So this is yeah, we have our own yeasts, but I know next door in the University of Weihenstephan we have a yeast center, and you can get a lot of really good yeasts for European beer style or German beer style yeast. So, for example, this the name for the yeast for the Bavarian Weizen Hefeweiß is I think it's 68. 68 is the number for the typical beer style yeast strain for this style of beer. I can recommend that.
Well, I knew yeast questions would be tough, but it's a good question, Thomas. Our next one comes also from Thomas. How many days from brewing to packaging for Weihenstephan's Hefeweizen and Sierra Nevada's Kellerweiss do you believe a short production conditioning style is beneficial for Weiss beer style?
May I start? So for the normal Hefeweiss, it's faster than the Vitus because it's not so strong, and it's also faster than bottom fermenting, of course, because it's a higher temperature or double temperature than the bottom fermenting yeast, because this is the feel good temperature of the yeast. That's the reason why it's double temperature. So it's getting faster, of course, and I think it's not good to do it too fast because it's not balanced, as I said before, from my point of view. But I think it's also not beneficial to let it too long settle in the tank, because the yeast wants to go down. It's gravity. Yeast wants to settle down, and you typically want to have enough yeast in the bottle to have this typical cloudiness for the Hefeweiss style. So that's why you have to find the point in your brewery. It depends on your tank size and your yeast strain and your fermentation style. But I think not too long, but definitely not too short.
So, Scott, can you touch on Kellerweiss?
For the total brewing time,
correct.
We're at about 2 weeks, I would say. So our fermentation temperature is 68 Fahrenheit, which is exactly 20 C, and that's what we do. So the primary fermentation takes probably not more than 5 days, and then we're cooling the beer down for maturation. But we don't have a long maturation cycle. It's really just about a week or so.
Great question, Thomas.
Weihenstephan is just to come to the times for Weihenstephan. So we have for the Vitus, we have from brewhouse to bottle we have 6 weeks, and for the Hefeweiss we have 3 or 4 weeks, depends on the maturation, how fast the maturation is, 3 or 4 weeks. So Vitus is double, and bottom fermenting is also double, 6 weeks. Just to have a...
All right. Gustav has our next question. It looks like it's especially popular, maybe the most popular question's been asked so far. What about pH during decoction? Do you make any sort of adjustment?
pH, so we have typically for in the brew house for mashing we have around about 5.6, 5.8, more or less around about that, because we don't do adjustment in the mashing. So that's we have this 3-time decoction. and enough time, so longer rest. So this is not a problem, not a big thing in the pH for the enzymes. So they have time. So you have time to adjust, or pH, as you said, or the mechanical things. So we use the mechanical thing for decoction, heating, so cooking the mash, and give more time. So that's why we don't focus on the pH from the mashing. Why? Because I want to have a higher pH, because during boiling, the alpha acids of the hops get more soluble the higher the pH is. So that's why I don't want to adjust the pH in the mashing to have a better, more alpha acids in my wort. So we, as you know, we are brewing with the purity law. So we're not allowed to add technical enzymes or downstream hops or hops after filtration. So that's why we have to do it in a classical, typical Bavarian way. So that's why I want to have a higher pH in boiling, to have more of my hops in the wort. And at the end of the boiling, I adjust a little bit with the sour malt or sour culture of the malt to so a biological one we produce in our brew house from our wort, to get down a little bit with the pH to 5.4 or 5.2 for start of the fermentation. So there it's better to have a lower pH, but not during cooking. Was it too detailed? Sorry.
No, that was thorough. Thank you very much. Great question, Gustav. It was very popular, but Brad has topped it. So this one is now the most popular question. Brad says, as a brewery that's almost 1,000 years old, are there still lots of historical documents? Do you have historical beer recipes or processes at the brewery? I imagine that the beers and styles have evolved throughout your history. Have you done maybe some historical beers, or maybe even a small batch of historical beers?
Yeah, that's the point I said when I talked about the history. So unfortunately, the monastery burned down several times. So that's why it's not everything here from the very first beginning. But we have some historical documents. For example, this license to brew and sell beer from 1040. That's the cool thing. That's why we know 1040 is our officially founding date. And we know, because the university is close to us, and they're researching a lot of historical things. And we knew which beer style was brewed at this time. And that's what we tried to do at celebration of the purity law, 500 years, 2016, with our Keller beer, with our 1516 Keller beer, it's the correct name. So it celebrates this 500 years. So it goes back to the roots of the brewery, darker beer, more hops, cloudy, slightly cloudy because it's long stored in the cellar and no filtration. So that's what we did. Or what we are doing, yeah.
You know, I just can't conceive of a 1,000-year-old brewery. Sierra Nevada just celebrated 40 years, right?
yeah, the big 4-0. We're catching up to you, Tobias.
I'm not here from the very beginning, so that's okay.
All right. Brad has Thomas Solberg has the next question. One commercial brewer in New Mexico does a good Hefeweizen with a pitch rate of 180 million cells per milliliter per P. Not sure what that is.
That'd be Play-Doh.
Play-Doh. Okay. Anyway, how important is a low pitch rate for making good classic German wheat styles and get an expressive banana clove character? What pitch rates do you use at Weihenstephaner and Sierra Nevada for your Hefeweizen or Kellerweiss?
This is not easy to answer because it depends on what yeast strain you use and which type of yeast. So do you use use cropped yeast or fresh propagated yeast. And so I can say for us, we just use propagated yeast, so that's why we use more. I think we use, normally we use around about 40 to 60 millions cells per milliliter per Plato. But you can do also for 10, so this is around about 10 million cells per milliliter per Plato if you use cropped yeast. But as I said, it depends on which strain, which gravity, of course, the higher the more, and which type. So cropped yeast, you don't need so much. So we use 40 to 60 millions for our propagated yeast, for our yeast strain, for our beer.
In simpler terms, Tobias, do you kind of underpitch or overpitch? Does one give you more of the banana characteristic?
You can, if you underpitch, it takes longer. The fermentation takes longer because the first thing is the yeast needs to propagate, and the first thing is propagation in the wort and not fermentation. And when it's enough yeast, then it's switched over to fermentation. When you overpitch, you just waste yeast. So I don't think this is a big problem. You waste yeast and you waste beer at the end of the day because you have too much yeast inside of the tank and you have to put it away. And with every yeast you put away, you put also beer away. So it's just a thing of putting away beer, not for the quality point of view, I think.
So you want to pitch what should be the correct amount, not under or over, is what I thought I heard. All right. Next question comes from Brad. As a U.S. consumer of your beer, and knowing that time and heat can affect the flavors of a beer, do you brew any different for export, knowing that it might be sitting longer or even hotter during transportation before it's consumed?
I think this is one part of our success. So we brew everything here in Weihenstephan and the Hill and the original brewery. Every single drop is brewed here, so we have no brewery abroad. So it's everything here, and everything is one thing because of a lot of export. I want to check the quality before it's getting to the bottle. So I have just one beer. This is the beer we sell in our brewery table next to us, and we sell to United States. So this is the same beer, same high quality, and everything must be fine. That's why I said I want to check it before it goes to the bottle, before it goes to the container, before it goes to the ocean, to the countries abroad. So one quality, and I want to have the best quality. So this is my goal every day.
But have you tried some of your beers in the U.S., and did you find them that they exported well through the temperature changes?
Yes, I did. So I tried it in the United States and in several cities, and also, for example, in Australia, as I told before. And I expected it a worse taste than the taste in Freising. So because it's 8 weeks on the ocean in a more or less hot container, and then it's on the road, and it takes time until it's at the customers. But I was really surprised. So this is the taste is more or less the same. So of course it's younger and fresher when you have it close to the brewery, of course. So beer is a living product. It's aging naturally, but the taste is long lasting. And this is, I think, the way we do with as less oxygen as possible, and having this best carbonization in a tank, and perfect ready beer, no conditioning, which I cannot control. So I want to have it under control until it leaves the brewery's gate. So I think this is the way we can produce or sell our beer. So I was happy with the quality. I was really happy. You have to handle
I know
it.
mine is delicious.
There, so, yeah, if you just tap it freshly and within a week, so we have a good quality. So no problem. I was happy. I was surprised.
Our next question comes from Katie. And Katie says, when you're talking about when it's ready, like each batch is a little unique. Most commercial breweries focus on consistency as much as anything else. How does your approach coincide with that? Because Vitus is wonderfully consistent.
Thank you for that, first of all, that you see that it's wonderfully consistent. So that's the goal we have. And but anyway, each batch is unique. So each harvest is unique. So this is what separates us from, for example, the wine industry. They have different harvests and say they just keep on their production and say, so this is vintage. And we have also every year a new harvest, and we have to know our process very, very well to see where can we adjust or have we adjust because of the analysis or the taste or everything else to have the same taste which the people expect for that beer. So that's our challenge, to adjust the process to have the best or always the same quality or taste. And of course, every batch unique, but we, how can I say? We try to standardize some things. So we try to have the same harvest that's why we have to separate hops we selected. So we have for at least 1 year, more or less, the hops are safe. To don't always adjust the recipe on that side. We have to see the malts, adjust slightly. We brew on the same day. We put it in the same day in the fermentation. We put it in the same day in the following week to the storage. We have the yeast with the same cells. So that's what we try to standardize. So have always the same taste. But every batch is unique, of course. We don't blend it with another batch. So every batch is unique. And every batch is just released when I say, okay, this is the good point in my job. So I have to taste, I have to try every batch and release it.
And Scott, that's not uncommon for commercial breweries, right?
No, that's definitely a part of it. And it sounds like a lot of fun, and to be fair, it is. But that's also extremely important that the brewmaster, or in some situations, in many situations, it's a panel of people who really have the last word. You can check every analysis known to man. However, the last word comes down to the sensory panel, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah. When I ran into you last week, you were in the hallway with a beer in your hand, and you were going through analysis then. Was that a sensory panel?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's very important. We tend to joke around a little bit about that. Oh, we're drinking some beer. We have to make sure everything's okay. But you know what? It's a very serious business, and we go through some very extensive and continual training as tasters to make sure that we can tell the difference between a few part per million of a compound or another compound. And we know when it's ready, we know it's ready.
Yeah, I overheard a descriptor you used I had never heard before, a children's vitamin.
That's right. So Scott is 100% right. So that's a lot of people say, it's a easy job. It's a cool job. You can drink beer the whole day. And I said, no, I don't drink beer the whole day. I try to, but it's I cannot. But it's like you said. So when I show you a lot of analysis, so 2 sheets of analyze and everything is fine, and then say, I don't know what you're talking about. It tastes good or it doesn't taste good. So that's the thing I see. And that's why this is one of the very important things is the taste, of course. And we are getting trained for sensoric, for the tasting. So we have every week we have a training to always train some kind of off flavors that could appear or could happen, some kind of flavors we want to have in the special beers. So you need to train it. So to see very fast or know very fast, is it okay? Could there be a problem? So it always can be a problem. So of course it could be a problem. It could, I don't know, some caustic could go to the vessel. Of course, we have a lot of security systems, but it could happen coincident. I don't know. Never happened. So I'm very happy for that. Mm-hmm. But I know how it tastes when there is caustic in the beer. I know it. So I don't release the beer. So that's what you have to train. You have to train. That's why we know. So we just need very, very a little sip to know, okay, this is okay. It's that stadium of the fermentation. This is better in the fermentation. This is longer. This is earlier. Now it could be released, or I think it needs a week, or I don't know. So I can go to my production planner and say, I tasted the Vitus. I think it's ready in next week or in 2 weeks. So that's what I can taste, or because of training.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Thank you, Tobias. That was a thorough question. Katie, thank you for a great question. Chris Fry has our next question. Since the brewery has used the same yeast for such a long time, has there been any noticeable drift in its flavor and aroma profile? Or has Weihenstephan been able to maintain its uniqueness?
As I said, so we have, of course, of our yeast, we have some cells stored in the yeast center. So they store it for us very properly, or they freeze it for us. So it's long living or long lasting. And from time to time, we get a new cells from the yeast center to start a completely new propagation, but from our yeast strain. So we use our bottom fermented yeast, for example, for half a year. Also use crop yeast, but top fermenting yeast we just use freshly propagated in our brewery, and we use it for 1 year or 1.5. So it's very long-lasting yeast, and then we get a new cell from the yeast center and start the propagation. Start it again. So that's why I can say we can maintain, or we can ensure our taste and our fresh taste, so there's no drift, hopefully.
Great question, Chris. Next one comes from Thomas. What fermentation temperature do you use in Weihenstephan's Hefeweizen and the Sierra Nevada Kellerweiss? And at what moment, which day, or how many Platos from final gravity and fermentation do you let the temperature free rise?
Well, I can start out on this one, I guess. So on Kellerweiss, we're at 68F or 20C. Our pump-in temperature, the wort temperature, when we pitch the yeast is a little cooler. But the fermentation temperature is always the same. We don't do a free rise. It's not necessary. The yeast ferments so quickly and thoroughly that there's no need to increase the temperature during the fermentation. And just real quick, I meant to jump in on the previous question, similar about pitch rate. We're using 500,000 cells per mil times degree Plato. So, for example, if our original gravity is 12 Plato, that means 6 million cells per milliliter for the pitch rate with the same 68 degree or 20C fermentation temperature.
All right, great question. Thank you very much, Thomas. Now, Tobias, I know it is getting late because you're 6 hours ahead of us. We have 6 more questions. Can you hang in there for 10 or 15 more minutes?
Yeah, you can go on. Yeah, I'm with you.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Next question comes from Mathis. Why is Yeast 3068 called Weihenstephan wheat when it is not? I don't know if you can speak to that one or not.
Good question. I think you have to ask Yeast, to be honest. I don't know. Maybe it's Weihenstephan style, or they know it's more or less our typical taste. So there are a lot of yeasts which are familiar to our yeast. So you can get a close taste. So maybe it's the typical most used Bavarian yeast, which is the 68. So I think it's also, what's the name? 68 also, huh?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Also 68. So this is the name you use in Bavaria. Maybe Weihenstephan because it's from the Weihenstephan University, or we are the oldest brewery. I don't know, but you have to ask them if you want to know it exactly. But this is what I imagine.
Thank you. Annette has our next one. Do you put beer into kegs for regular draft dispense? And if so, how many grams per liter of CO2 do you carb the beer to? And how many gallons per L? Liter? No. G per L. Got any idea what that is, Scott?
That's
or
grams,
in the bottle?
Grams per liter.
Grams per liter.
Carbonation rate, yeah.
We put it in stainless steel kegs. We have it for 30 liters and for 50 liters. Sorry. And we have it around about 5 grams per liter, because we think lower carbon, so it's started at the beginning. Typically for Hefeweiss is around about 7 grams per liter to have it sparkling, very sparkling. So this is very common for this style of beers. But we have it lower, 5.5 roundabout, 5.6, maximum 6 keg and bottle, because I think it's more smoother and easier to drink. Because when you have it too high in CO2, I cannot drink it. I can, but after 3 you have this big stomach. So that's why I want to have it a little bit decreased, or I decreased it a little bit also slightly from time to time, because I think it's easier to drink, smoother, more. You can drink it better. You can drink more and easier. So that's why we have a little bit decreased in the CO2. What do you think, Scott?
How does that, compared to Calibration?
Yeah, our sort of standard, and we use a different unit. We use volumes of CO2 is our unit of measure here. So when you're talking about the upper end, Tobias, you are talking about what we would call maybe approaching 3 volumes of CO2. And then we find that on draft beer, that's difficult to pour without a special setup. And so that means for draft beer, we typically use a little bit less CO2 so that it doesn't create a problem at bars and restaurants. And that would be in the range of 2.5 to 2.6 volumes of CO2. But we also find that with really maybe rich beers where you're looking for a CO2 level to enhance the body and the drinkability, then lower is a little bit better. And we tend to go down to about 2.4 volumes of CO2 for beers like that.
So there's a lot of factors to take into account. It sounds like between how easy they are to drink to what's practical to serve at the brewery or the pub or the bar. All right. We've lost Scott there. I hope his battery didn't die, but we'll keep going, Tobias. Scott has the next question. Do you think removing the fermentation Croisin is important for a wheat beer?
Question for me.
Yes.
This is a really good question because this is religion, philosophy. So there are advantages and there are also disadvantages. So we just use propagated yeast, so we have more advantages to let the Croisin in. So that's why we let most of the Croisin in. So as I said, we have a horizontal tank with the open fermentation, and with the propagated yeast, so we let it ferment. And after fermentation, we put it or pull the beer from the bottom from the tank. So very, very smooth, very slow, very gentle. So the Croisin is more or less on top of the beer and settles down to the bottom. A little bit of that is going into the beer, of course. And I think what is going in is more or less the better one. The cold drop and everything is inside. The Croisin is upside. So the most of the Croisin stays in the tank. And that's the same as putting it away or let it into the tank. So when you do it very gentle and very smooth, it just settles down and stays in the tank. After that, we throw it away. So we don't crop the yeast, we throw the Croisin away, use propagated yeast. Our philosophy. But there's a lot of philosophy.
Yeah, but what a unique approach. I love that. Scott, what a great question. We're down to just 4 more questions. Henry asked the next one. How do you control the amount of yeast carryover to package consistency?
We have a centrifuge. So after the maturation and when the tank is ready, when I release it to filling, we have a centrifuge. So we do it separated slowly, and we measure the turbidity and the haziness and control it on this with the speed of the centrifuge to have the same turbidity and the tank for filling. So that's what we are doing after maturation.
So your centrifuge is how you control it.
Yeah, we have a target for every beer we have, for every cloudy beer we have, and the speed of the centrifuge is depending on the cloudiness. And of course, the longer you mature, the lower the turbidity or the haziness in the tank. So the slower you can centrifuge, of course. But normally we give them time. But Vitus has double time than Hefeweiss, so Vitus is very gentle centrifuge, just to have the same turbidity or enough for that. So that's what we want to have. It's turbidity and our haziness in our beer is from the protein and mainly, which we get out of the mash, and the yeast, of course.
And I find the centrifuge fascinating with these hazy beers, but as I understand, Scott, that even your hazy little thing is run through a centrifuge. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And that's primarily because there's so much hops in it. We want to get the particles of hops out so it's not in the can. And of course, when you do that, the yeast comes out too. On Kellerweiss, of course, it's not dry hopped. And so we do centrifuge only a part of that beer. Generally, when you first bring beer from a fermenter, there's a high amount of solids, and in that case, it's yeast in the bottom of the tank. And so we will centrifuge most of that out, but then we bypass the rest. So it's essentially unfiltered or untreated. But the result is that in the Kellerweiss, the amount of yeast which is in every bottle can be variable. But, we're okay with that. But in the case of hazy little thing IPA, Tobias, you might know that one. That is a beer which is extremely hazy, but not with yeast. And we do, like I said, we centrifuge it because we don't want to have, when you pour it into a glass, a lot of hop material in the glass. I mean, it might be good for the aroma, but we don't want to have to make you floss your teeth after you drink a hazy little thing.
This is my favorite of your beers, Scott. I love this hazy little thing, especially fresh from the tap in the brewery. Of course, nothing beats that.
That's
but
right.
Still in the cans, and he brought me, for example, last year when he visited me, he brought me some cans of the hazy thing. Crazy good. I love this beer. But you cannot get it in Europe, so you have to change that.
Oh yeah. Thank you. I will be sure to bring more next time.
That would actually be a good one to do a program on, with the popularity of hazies. And I understand Hazy Little Thing for Sierra Nevada is doing extremely well also.
It is. It's growing. It's been very popular for us. So we're happy about that, really. It's challenging, certainly, this right now in the marketplace. So we're able to carry on and keep brewing beer, largely because of the success of Hazy Little Thing.
Henry, great question. Henry has another question. I found and tasted an excellent Vitus today. Would you please explain your date code?
Actually, that's not a date code. It's just a production lot. So this is an internal number for production, so I can trace it back to if there's something with the beer. I can find it in my system to see the production date and the raw material and everything else. So there's no date inside. It's just a production lot. I have to type it into my system, and then I can tell you the date of the filling, or production, but I cannot see it on the bottle. Sorry.
So to the layman, it appears random. You've got to put it in a computer to translate.
Yeah, but be sure. Normally, you get fresh beer, or you taste it immediately. So. But we have very good importer over there in the United States. So our importer is they're sitting in the eastern part of the United States, TBS brands, and they're doing a really good job. So we are very happy with them, and they do the best thing to distribute and have it as fresh and fast as possible at the customers, and control the stocks. So I think you will hardly find a bad or old beer.
Yeah, and Henry, I appreciate your question, because I had asked the same question. We just finished a recent program on dank beers, hoppy beers with a dankness character, and date codes were really important in that discussion. So we're down to just two questions. So out of habit, does Tobias swirl your pour? So how do you like your Vitus? Do you swirl it? How do you like it?
Yes, you're right. It's more or less out of habit. So that's right. So I swirl the bottle because of maybe some yeast. But I don't think this is a point, because we're not bottle conditioned, so we don't have that much yeast you have to swirl up. And I also swirl it here in my glass. It's out of habit, so I think sometimes you get more aromas back in the nose. And when you swirl it again, you have it again. So you lose some CO2, of course, but maybe you have to drink just faster, so it's not a problem. You can swirl.
Well, we were all pacing ourselves, Henry. All right, last question comes from Jason. And this is a little bit of a switch. So after a lot of question about ales, how do you lager your Pilsner?
our Pilsner is also a special beer, of course, because there's a lot of hops inside. Of course, Hallertau hops. So we are happy to be in the middle of Hallertau. I think still the world's biggest hop planting area. And we have but classical styles, so not this fancy fruity ones, but also fruity. And that's why we want to have the focus not only on bitterness, but also on the flavorness and from the typical Bavarian style of hops. So that's what we do. Despite of the other lager beers, we normally have it in the horizontal tanks to have the settle down the yeast. But Pilsner, we ferment and lager in the vertical tanks to have this flavor more in the liquids, not settle it down. I also believe that the flavor is going down with the yeast anyway, sometimes. So that's why we want to have it in this way and have to have more flavor inside. And for all of our bottom fermenting beers, we have at least 5 weeks storage time, normally longer. We also try every beer, taste every beer every week, so to be sure to have it fresh. And one point for Pilsner especially is filtration is not a friend for Pilsner. So for selling it abroad especially, we have to, and that's why we put a lot of flavor inside to have enough flavor after filtration. But filtration basically is not a friend for hoppy beers, in my opinion or my experience. So if you have the chance to come to Weihenstephan, I would recommend go to the Bräustibel at the brewery. It's the only place in the world we sell the Pilsner straight from the tank as a Keller Pils. We don't bottle it. It's just in the Bräustibel, and you get the real cool Weihenstephaner Hallertauer hop flavor of this Pilsner. So I think this was this the beer we sticked last year in the Bräustibel, Scott?
Yeah, and I was just going to say
so after
is
Vitus in the cellar, yeah. Pilsner, Keller Pils in the beer garden. So I can remember a little bit. So I think.
Yeah, for sure. That is a really amazing experience and such an incredible beer. It's a very special beer, very special taste, and. If anybody on the call has ever needed a reason to go to Bavaria, that's your reason.
Thank you.
Well, it sounds like we need to get up a road trip. Oh, we just need to get 2020 over with.
That's right.
Well, speaking of getting things over with, Tobias, thank you so much for it's late in your evening, and I know your family is waiting on you. You've got to go to work in the morning. It's not nearly as late for those of us on the East Coast of the United States, but we do have people from all over joining tonight. We had a huge crowd. We had a lot of fun, and it really gives me an appreciation for, these are unique beers. There's beers, and then there are beers worth seeking out. And when you and I first started talking about Vitus, I had actually never had it before. And you told me, you've got to do that. And I actually had a bottle in the refrigerator that I had not opened, that I had picked up just a happenstance before our call. And what a phenomenal beer. I mean, just each one, like the hazy little thing. There's certain beers that are just worth seeking out, and Vitus, without a doubt, is one of them. So, gentlemen, cheers. This was a fantastic evening, fantastic program. I learned a lot. There's a few acronyms that I've got to learn better. But Scott, thank you so much for your time this evening. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Very honored to be here. Thank you.
Well, and Scott and I are going to be doing something shortly on Celebration Ale. We've had a project going on there, and By the way, Scott, the camera footage of the fermentation looks pretty awesome.
Great.
So
I look forward to seeing it.
I do too. I'm not finished yet. I have 110 gigabytes worth of photos to process. So I'm going to have to buy another computer to do it timely. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. Audience, thank you so much for your time and for joining us tonight. This was a ton of fun. We also have another program tomorrow evening where we're going to be talking to Travis Rupp about colonial beers and the original 1752 IPA and the real story behind that. So that'll be a lot of fun. Tobias, it's probably well past your bedtime, but it will be recorded for those in Germany that want to catch it later. So thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you so much for your
Good night,
time,
all.
for hosting, and Scott and all the people come in and the good questions. So thank you so much. It was really fun, yeah. And if you don't find the Vitus next to you, so you can also use the product finder on the Weihenstephan homepage. Maybe it helps if you now have the feeling to have a Vitus now. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Good night.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.